Okay, the time is now 6:30 and doesn't look like we have quite a quorum yet. I think we might be having some technical difficulties, so hold off a few minutes, see if we get some more people on to get our quorum going. Actually, okay. Looks like we have a quorum now. I've just seen Councilman Risucci join, Farmer.
Yeah, an administrative note. I've been sitting in the lobby for a good 15 minutes and
Yes, Jackie was saying that the link is not quite working properly, so she's looking into that part of it. But thanks for pointing that out because I know she was asking about it.
Okay, no worries.
Hello?
Ron, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we got more than a quorum now. Thank you. I'll just hold off for our city manager to join us, and that way we can get started here. I know a few people are having some difficulty joining the through the link that was in the agenda.
This is John. I've been here for a long time too.
All right, John. Thank you. Okay, Jackie, you think you're ready for us to start?
Yes, and I have city manager. He's having trouble too as well. It says he's in the lobby, but I have him as already in the meeting. So I think we're just going to try to connect him, but.
Okay, I'll hold up for until you tell me that he's on so that we could get the part started. Was he might not be able to give us any information.
Okay, just a moment. Thank you.
Yeah, because I had
City manager is calling in again, seeing if this works.
Okay, if not, we just do a roll call and then do the proclamation. That way it'll give you some time to kind of get dialed in.
Okay, that's fine. Do you want me to start?
Yes, please go ahead and do the roll call. Let me just do the first part.
Okay.
Welcome to the Monday, July 13th, 2020 regular city council meeting. This is the city's 8th council meeting held via online conference application. All city council members and city staff are participating from remote locations. Please allow one person to speak at a time. I will call on every member to make sure that you have had an opportunity to speak, and votes will be taken by roll call vote. Ms. City Clerk, will you please do a roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Guerrero.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Stremler.
Here.
Councilor Farmer.
Here.
Councilor Henry.
Here.
Councilor Restucci.
here.
Councilor Hicks.
Here.
Councilor Broersma. Councilor Broersma. He must be having the same problem. We'll get back to him. City Manager Casey.
Present.
I am here. City Clerk Renteria. Finance Director Alba.
Present.
Fire Chief Anderson. Fire Chief Anderson.
Here.
Police Chief Escalera.
Here.
Public Works Director Fisher. Public Works Director Fisher.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Can you reach out to Mr. Councilman Brogeman? Maybe he might be in the lobby as well, waiting like some other councilmen were earlier today. And if he is, then we'll just wait for him to join us, and we'll put him in the roll call portion of it as present. Up next, we have a proclamation, Grand Columbia Council Scouts Me In Day. This time I'd like to read into the record the proclamation for the Grand Columbia Council Scout Me In Day. So, whereas the Grand Columbia Council of the Boy Scouts of America in Central Washington has an outstanding legacy and received national acclaim for youth and family involvement in outdoor recreation, conservation of nature, youth leadership activities, and career development in honor of the 2020 Grand Columbia Council Boy Scouts of America. And whereas the Grand Columbia Council was founded 95 years ago in 1925 to prepare young people and make ethical and moral choices over their lifetime by teaching them the values of the Scouts oath and Scout law. The council provides boys and girls the nation's foremost youth character and leadership program. And whereas on the Grand Columbia Council has 1,000 boys and girls and 80 leaders who directly support direct scouting programs for youth, and from Prosser to the Canadian border and from Cle Elum to Ritzville. Our community seeks to pay tribute to the works of scouts, scout leaders, and volunteers who maintain lives of honesty, discipline, and purpose. And whereas the Grand Columbia Council seeks to strengthen current scouting programs and ensure scouting opportunities for future generations, the council members are active advocates in providing information and activities to promote the scouting mission and secure support for programs. And whereas the Grand Columbia Council invites the public to participate in July's River Run Regatta, involving a month of scouting activities, culminating in a scouting program live on live stream on our website in Yakima or Wenatchee on July 29th, 2020. And whereas the River Run Regatta will bring support to improve Camp 5, Camp Bonaparte, and Camp Summit Vista, and increase training in the cities, waterways, lakes, forests, and mountains of Central Washington, and fuel the achievement of expanding dens, troops, units, and volunteers. And whereas the Grand Columbia Council delivers programs that help generate community leaders who guide and lead their communities for generations to come, enabling these communities to be appreciated and safe havens for all people. Now, therefore, I, Francisco Guerrero, as Mayor of Sunnyside, Washington, do hereby proclaim the month of July 29th, 2020, as Scout Me In Day in the city of Sunnyside, and urge citizens to watch the live stream on their website. Our recognition for this day can enrich our entire community. Testimony whereof I hear on to set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Sunnyside to be affixed, done at the city of Sunnyside this 13th day of July in the year 2020. Okay. Up next in our agenda, we have public comments. Mr. City Manager, did we receive any public comments?
Mr. Mayor and Council, we did not receive any comments through the email site before the start of council meeting tonight.
Thank you. Up next, we have our consent agenda, which consists of vouchers, approval vouchers numbers 118774 through 118778, and wire transfers are listed for $537,238.74 for the period ending on July 25th, 2020, and approved claim vouchers, voucher numbers 99352 through 99392, and wires transfers are listed for $160,570.36 for the period ending on June 24th, 2020. Voucher numbers 99393 through 99427, and wire transfers are listed for $44,468.82 for the period ended July 1st, 2020. Voucher numbers 99428 through 99470, and wire transfers as listed for $111,085.76 for the period ending on July 8th, 2020. I will now call on each council member for any questions or comments on the consent agenda. Councilor Hicks.
No questions.
Deputy Mayor Stremler.
No questions.
Councilor Henry.
No questions, sir.
Councilor Restucci.
No questions, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Boersma. Councilor Farmer.
No questions.
Okay, I do have a question, Mr. City Manager, on page 3 of the vouchers for 7/1/2020, check number 99,400 payable to C-Specs for the fuel system repair for the jail van. The amount was $7,012.90. It just seemed a little higher than my experience of fuel system repair. So I'm kind of curious if you could give us some information on that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, and I'll invite Shane to kind of fill in some of the mechanical details for me. But yes, we ran into an issue with the jail transport van where the fuel lines had become damaged and clogged, and in order to effect repairs required actually a replacement of several of the components. So it was a pricier replacement than, say, a typical fuel line servicing. Director Fisher, is anything you can add in further detail or kind of the specifics about the mechanics of that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Casey. Yeah, what happened was it appears that there was an additive dumped into the fuel. That is a diesel fuel vehicle, and newer diesel rigs have an additive put in their fuel called DEF, D-E-F. That's supposed to help the engine run better. This is a little bit older vehicle that doesn't require DEF. We're not really sure who put the DEF in there, but they actually put the DEF into the gas tank, which basically ruined the fuel system. And so we had to have C-Specs go in, pull all the fuel lines out, injectors, everything, and replace the entire fuel system. And I can answer any questions on that.
That makes sense. Obviously, it was a pretty elaborate work. It wasn't just a fuel pump or anything like that. It sounds like it was almost the whole system for that price. So that makes sense.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. Okay, council members, what is the desire of council on this item?
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Okay, motion by Stremler, second by by Henry. Is that correct?
Hicks.
Oh, Hicks, okay, Hicks. Motion by Stremler, second by Hicks to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote.
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Councilor Hicks,
Yes.
Councilor Henry,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Councilor Restucci,
Yes.
Councilor Boersma, Councilor Farmer.
Yes.
So I have 6 yes votes, and so motion carries. And I just want to let you know that Dean is coming in now.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll just put him in the minutes that he's joined us, and we'll move forward. Okay, so motion passes. Thank you. Up next, we have our active agenda, which consists of a 2021-2026 6-year transportation improvement program public hearing. Consider public comment received on the proposed 6-year transportation improvement program. So we'll do the public hearing appearance of fairness disclosure. So this public hearing is being held to receive public comment on the City of Sunnyside's 6-year transportation improvement program for the year 2021-2026. Appearance of fairness disclosure. The concern is that Mr. City Manager, do you usually give a information about this, or we go straight into the public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, we typically you would start the open the public hearing. I or the Public Works Director would give a brief statement about the fact that we're discussing inviting comment on the 6-year transportation plan that was briefed to council last week, and then entertain any public comments that come in.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the concern is that this hearing be fair in form and substance as well as appearance. Council members, do any of you have a conflict of interest concerning this issue? Do any of you stand to gain or lose any financial benefit as a result of the outcome of this hearing? If your answer is yes, please speak now.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a conflict of interest, but I want to place on the record that as chair of the COG, I will ultimately be approving this document after your signature.
Okay, thank you for that. And I don't believe that would be
No,
any
it's not
concern.
a conflict. It was a conflict when I was sitting as mayor, but it's not a conflict now.
Right. Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it. Okay, council members, can you hear and consider this in a fair and objective manner? If your answer is no, please speak now. Okay, audience members, at this time we would like, we'll ask the audience if there's any objection to my participation or any other council members' participation in these proceedings. The public was asked to submit objections or comments by email and none were received. So we'll move on to unless there's somebody who's joined the meeting that objects to any council members or my participation, please speak now. Okay, hearing none, the public hearing is now open. Okay, Ms. City Manager, can you provide us a staff report on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and for the public. Washington cities are required to provide a comprehensive transportation program for the upcoming 6 calendar years. And this city has worked on a program that includes roughly a dozen projects of different sizes and scopes supporting the infrastructure throughout the city. The program was briefed to council at its public workshop at the beginning of the month on July 6th, and is now open for public to comment on or provide feedback. Thank you.
And is it correct that we did not get any information or any public comments on this item?
We did not receive any written comments in advance of tonight.
Okay, thank you. Council members, any questions or comments on this item? Okay, hearing no
Mayor,
questions. Yes.
This is Councilor Roseman. I'm just letting you know that I have finally managed to log into the meeting, and I apologize for my tardiness.
Thank you for joining us. I know we were having a bit of a technical difficulty, a few of us to get started. So thank you for going through the process and joining us. Thank you. Okay, no comments. So this public hearing is now closed. Okay, so up next, we have our 6-year transportation improvement program. Consider approving a resolution adopting the 2021-2026 6-year transportation improvement program. I will now call on each council member to ensure you have an opportunity to ask any questions. And since we discussed this last week, I'll just ask if there's any questions or comments on the 6-year transportation improvement program. And if there is, then we'll go through the list. If not, since we all discussed this last meeting we had, we'll expedite the process and go to a motion after a few minutes or a few seconds of asking if there's any questions or comments. Council members, any questions or comments? Okay, hearing no questions or comments on this item, what is the desire of council?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the 6-year transportation plan for the city.
I'll second.
Okay, that was Councilmember Restucci, and the second was Councilmember Henry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so motion by Restucci, second by Henry to approve the consent agenda of the 2021-2026 6-year transportation improvement program. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote, please.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yay.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Strimler,
Yes.
Counselor Hicks,
Yes.
Counselor Broersma,
Yes.
okay, 7 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, our next agenda item is ratifying the Jerry Taylor Veterans Memorial donation. Consider adopting an ordinance ratifying resolution 2015-55, accepting the donation of the Jerry Taylor Veterans Memorial to include artwork, stonework, and other improvements. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. For several years now, the city of Sunnyside has worked in support of the American Legion Post 73's efforts to build out the Jerry Taylor Veterans Memorial. It's located in the city's right-of-way on the median of 9th Street between Edison and Franklin. And the memorial, as noted, contains artwork and many other improvements that honor Sunnyside veterans, and it has become a significant draw for tourism to the city. In 2015, the Post attempted to donate the memorial to the city, and the city accepted it. City Council took an action by way of Council Resolution 2015-55, accepting the memorial artwork and other improvements to ensure that these assets are protected against loss and support the continued build-out of the memorial. Recently, some questions were raised around the process steps that were followed at that time, and in late June we received a letter, and the Post received a letter after our city attorney had a chance to research some things further and found that most of it was correctly handled. We just had one issue, which is RCW 3521-100 requires that such donations be accomplished by way of a duly published ordinance. Accordingly, it's been recommended that the council go ahead and approve and publish an ordinance that ratifies its 2015 decision to accept the donation of the Jerry Taylor Veterans Memorial. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report, Mr. City Manager. We'll start with our Councilor Hicks. Or any questions or comments on this agenda item?
No questions or comments.
Councilor Broersma?
I have no questions, Mr. Mayor, but I do have a comment. I just want to commend our staff in finding the issue and the problem and then going to work and getting it solved. They did a phenomenal job. They got it done, and I'm confident that this fix is going to solve any future problems as well. So well done to our staff.
Perfect, thank you. Councilor Restucci?
Same comments as Mr. Broersma. I'm as the mayor at the time, I'm glad that we're able to get this resolved, and I would move forward with it immediately.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Strimler?
No comments.
Okay, Councilor Farmer?
Same comments that my other two seatmates have made. It's good. It's a great addition to the city, and I'm glad that we can support the Post in their efforts to lighten us on the service and the hardships that our veterans have gone through.
Okay, Councilor Hicks?
Yeah, again, like the rest of the council said, thanks for all the hard work that the Post did, and no other questions.
Thank you. Okay, so we heard question and comments. What is the desire of council on this item?
Move to approve.
This is John.
Second.
You got the second, the first, who moved it? I got two voices.
John Henry made the motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. So motion by Councilmember Henry, second by Councilmember Restucci to adopt an ordinance ratifying resolution 2015-55, accepting the donation of the Jerry Taylor Veterans Memorial to include artwork, stonework, and other improvements. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Counselor Brosma,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Counselor Hicks.
Yes.
Okay, we have 7 yes votes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Next, we have our Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, LTAC 2020 funding recommendation. Consider authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with American Legion Post 73 for $17,000 for the lodging tax fund. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. On July 2nd, the city's Lodging Tax Advisory Committee held a meeting and, among other topics, had reviewed a request from American Legion Post 73 to award funds for the purchase and installation of additional granite slabs at the Jerry Taylor Memorial's Veterans Memorial. This was a request that had been submitted in 2019, I believe in 2019, that had been delayed while the ambiguity or the issues we just addressed were being reviewed and resolved. After that process had gone forward, LTAC met and unanimously recommended going forward with award of the $17,000 request. And staff recommend council's favorable approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go down the list and ask questions of council members on this item. Council Member Restucci.
No questions, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Farmer.
No questions.
Councilor Hicks.
No questions.
Councilor Brosma.
Yeah, it's just a comment, Mr. Mayor. The Jerry Taylor Memorial Plaza is a bright light in the city of Sunnyside. It is a draw. We have a sign on Interstate 82 in both directions driving people into the city to see this. And this is something that as a community, we have every right to be very proud of. And the American Legion Post, led by Greg Schlieve, has done an amazing amount of work on this. This is a fantastic asset to our city, and I heartily recommend approving of these funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Henry.
No questions, sir.
Okay. So, Dean, just a question, I guess. I did see a report that our lodging tax dollars were quite reduced as far as income is concerned. And just looking that we are not going to be having as much revenue as we did in the past. Are you comfortable with the amount of funds that are there for next year to support some of the signature events?
Mr. Mayor, this was part of the discussion that we had at our special LTAC meeting. And the members of the LTAC committee who were present unanimously felt that not only did we have sufficient funds to grant this request, but that this request was important enough to receive what they did ask for. So after discussion, yeah, we all agreed that this was right.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so what is the desire of council on this item?
Move to
Approve.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Who did the motion? I heard 2 voices.
me and Henry did.
Sit up. So who wants to take on the lead of the motion?
I'll take it.
Hicks? Okay, so motion by Hicks, second by Brosma to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with American Legion Post 73 for $17,000 from lodging tax funds. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, the city clerk will now start the roll call vote.
Counselor Hicks,
Aye.
Counselor Brosma,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci,
Yes.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Stremler,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero.
Yes.
Okay, 7 yes votes, motion passes.
Thank you. Up next is our E agenda item, which is a purchase and sales agreement extension. Consider authorizing the city manager to sign a purchase and sales agreement extension. Mr. City Manager, can you give us some update on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council will recall that in July of 2019, the city received and accepted a purchase and sale agreement offer for a large set of parcels on the western edge of town, commonly referenced as the Monson properties. This is for the portion of the site that is not also under current obligation for development of a solar farm. The proposal was brought to the city's attention by our contracted broker, John Hodkinson of Allman Real Estate. In the intervening time, even with the challenges and disruptions from the COVID-19 pandemic, the buyer has been working diligently to secure financing and is making progress in their efforts with federal and other financial partners. And recently I reached out to Mr. Hodkinson to see if they were close to being able to complete the transaction as originally envisioned for July and August of this year. He said they're getting close, but did request consideration by council of the extension that you see before you. And so we had time to bring it onto the agenda and would recommend it for the council's consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So we'll go down the list and any questions or comments? We'll start with Councilmember Broersma.
No questions or comments, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Strumler.
I don't know if I caught it or not, but was there a time, how long of an extension is this?
August 17, 2020 on the screen there, Ron.
Okay, I don't see it on my screen. Okay.
Well,
okay, I haven't, okay, never mind. Okay, thank you.
I want to double check something, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I want to double check something. The document that we'd received from John Hodkinson, I thought was for a 1-year extension. I'm opening it up now. It, yes, I'm sorry, it's for extension to July 17, 2021. Current agreement expires this month. And just looking at the document, and inadvertently the last year's the previous extension from January got attached to your packet. It should be the one that we received on July 7th for an extension request to July 17th, 2021, with closing extended to August 17th, 2021.
Okay, so I mean that's the full year. Is there if for whatever reason we get another buyer who's interested, can we get out of this, or are we kind of stuck with this agreement until this buyer secures financing? Mr. City Manager, do you know?
We can entertain a different offer. It might be problematic. The information I received through Mr. Hodkinson is that the financing partner, the United States Department of Agriculture, has advised the buyer that their approval timeline is 6 to 12 months.
Mr. City Manager, this is Councilor Restucci. Are they also receiving $500,000 from CTED at the state level, from Commerce?
Not that I'm aware of. There is a grant from the Department of Commerce for the solar project on the eastern end of the parcel that went, that I believe was in roughly about that amount. That was for the solar farm development project.
Gotcha.
But that's a different proposal.
Okay, we'll go down. We'll continue on the list, and then we'll see what we want to do with this. So, Councilor Farmer, questions or comments on this item?
I'm a little concerned about waiting another year, and not having the opportunity if something would to come up to look at a different offer. I'm a little concerned about that. I think they've had enough time. I know we are in uncharted times right now, but I'm concerned.
Thank you. Councilor Henry.
No questions or comments.
Councilor Hicks.
Kind of a little concerned on the year way, but no real questions or comments.
Okay. Councilor Restucci, any additional questions?
No, but I would echo the sentiments of my colleagues when it comes to concern with us pushing this an entire year.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, would it be possible to try and renegotiate this to maybe a 6-month extension versus a full year?
I would be happy to propose that to Mr. Hodkinson and have him take it back to the buyer.
Okay, so if council doesn't object, I'd like the city manager to take this back to our agent and see if they will be interested in doing a 6-month extension, and we could reconsider at that time based on what we see. Meanwhile, we're not tied in for a full year, hoping that he'll get financing. We're stuck with another full year of not doing anything with the property. So there's no objection. We'll have the city manager look into that. Okay, hearing no objection, Mr. City Manager, could you please do that for us?
Will do so. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so up next we have our 2020 budget second quarter update, and we're going to receive a presentation. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. I'm going to turn most of this over to the City Finance Director, Elizabeth Alba. I'll just introduce the topic by noting that, like many cities around the state and nation, we've been watching closely to try to anticipate as best we can with the widely fluctuating information what the impacts on our budget and revenue streams and expenditures are going to be in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's not entirely unprecedented in U.S. history. The Spanish flu epidemic of a century ago had some similar impacts on the economy, but it's certainly outside of any of our contemporary experiences. And so it's been a little difficult to get a good grasp of what we can expect. For the council's information, I've also attached a copy of the state's Revenue Forecast Council's most recent presentation. It's from a few weeks ago, but it was also shared, I think, at the AWC conference at the end of June. A sense of what they're seeing in terms of statewide impacts, but more specifically to the city of Sunnyside, we're seeing some encouraging signs that the effects aren't as severe as in some other jurisdictions, but there's still important cause to be very conservative with how we approach both our revenue estimates as well as our expenditures in the foreseeable future. So with that, I'll turn it over to Director Alba to give you the year-to-date picture in quite a bit more detail.
Good evening. Tonight I'm trying to take a step forward and use my own screen, and I haven't done that yet. So if I could ask Jackie for some help. How do I share my PowerPoint, Jackie?
There's a button that says New Share. You'll click that and then click the screen that you want to share with us. You are the co-host, so you should be able to see that option. It's like it's a little green arrow button.
Okay.
Next to participants, pause share, security, start video, mute.
Well, now you're seeing me. Let's
This is Henry. I just wanted council to know that I'm coming up on Highway 12. My phone may drop when I get through White Pass, may not.
Well, I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, but let's go ahead and see if Jackie can assist me in getting this up. I may have to let Jackie post. So Jackie, I'm not sure how to get it to work, so I don't want to keep holding up the meeting. You have a copy of it on the agenda packet. Do you mind sharing it for me?
Yes. Okay, does everybody see it now?
Yes.
So tonight I'm going to be discussing the 2020 revenues and expenditures January through June, general funds by department, all other funds. And I just want to remind everyone that this does include budget amendment number 1 that was approved on April 27th. And we've done a very comprehensive look at where we are at in 6 months and where we should be. So you could go to the next slide.
Elizabeth, I just had to mute Counselor Henry. I think we're getting a little bit of wind from his phone, so I just muted him. So I think we can hear you better now.
Okay. So if you could go to
Sorry, I heard my name. My phone keeps playing out, so I'm going over the pass right now.
Elizabeth, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. If you could go to the next slide. So in reviewing our 6-month position, obviously our target is 50% of the budget. And really honestly, in reviewing this, we had several areas that we knew were going to be light, but then we had several areas where we came in at or above budget. So our taxes came in at 53.6, licenses and permits at 52.1, and intergovernmental, which is anything that's paid from another government to us, which would include grants, at 58.8. So the only 2 areas of concern are charges for goods and services. Jail services are down 43.3, and obviously Parks and Recreation is 0.07. And the main reason for that is our recreation programs are completely closed right now. Next slide. Charges for goods and services overall is at 36.6. And again, that has the jail revenue, the lack of Parks and Rec revenue. We are seeing a decline in permits a little bit, but nothing drastic. Fines and penalties were at 45.9, and that would be our municipal court, which we're in a very good position compared to other courts in actually the state, since we are continuing to hold court, even though we're doing it in a drive-through capacity with, any tools that we have to remote in the prosecutor, the judge, and the public defenders. And then interest and other, obviously just down slightly to 43.8. But overall, our general fund revenues year to date are at 54.6%. So even with declines in some areas, with the gains in others, we're still coming out a good 4.6% ahead of our 6 month. And if you look here, this shows where we get our revenues. Retail sales and use tax, 25% of those revenues. Property and pilot taxes, 22%. So those are the things that we've really been watching to make sure that we're tracking and we're doing okay. People are still paying their property taxes, still paying their utility taxes. Retail sales and use tax in June, we had the highest month that we've had in several years. And in doing a little bit of thinking about that, what I realized is the destination sales tax is probably helping us much more than I anticipated, because people that normally would go to the Tri-Cities or Yakima to go to the mall are likely shopping at home, having it delivered, and Sunnyside gets the sales tax benefit. So I think that has, kept our sales tax, and good numbers. And so we'll just have to keep watching that as we go along. Okay, let's talk about expenditures. So we have obviously a target of 50%. So legislative, we are at 64.7. Court, we're at 49.6. Executive, 47.3. Finance, 53.1. Clerk, 50%. And legal services at 40.9. So personnel benefits for our left one at 55.5. Personnel services at 46.4. Central services at 66.4. Law enforcement at 46.3. Fire control at 47.3. And building and code enforcement at 48.6. Other non-expenditures, 51.8, airport, 58.3, planning and community development, 38%, jail, 47, parks and rec, 45.4, and then dispatch at 58.5. Overall, you can see our largest expenditures come from the police department, then the jail, then fire. So those are areas that are still staying well under their budget. So I think that, it is an area we need to keep tracking, but also, be aware of the fact that they are still staying within their budget status. So the good news is our overall general fund revenues is at 54.6, and our overall general fund expenditures at 42.7. So the next one is our capital project funds, and revenues transfer from the original fund or grant receipts, and then expenditures or projects in process. So in the general fund, we're tracking right along with the correct revenues and expenditures. Street fund, we have the revenues and we've started a few projects, but we're just in the beginning stages of those. Fire equipment reserve, we have 0 expended because we did not make any commitments in that fund. Water department is right on track. Sewer department has begun some of their capital projects, and then EMS ambulance has no projects scheduled for this year. Street fund. So this is a transfer in for the general fund. Most of the revenues come from that. The other revenues come from the gas tax, which we are seeing a little bit of a decline in that as people are not putting as much gas in their vehicles locally. Revenues are at 48.3, but expenditures are at 38.4. So that means that we're still in healthy shape. And right now our ending fund balance is 119,504. Special revenue funds, these are the funds that pay for things that have a specific purpose or are obligated by council or the state that you can only spend on certain things. So our contingency fund, we have no plans to expend it, and our current balance is $13,120. Investigative fund has revenues of 92%, and they have expended 24.2. Crime prevention, revenues of 96.5, expended 43%. Public safety tax, expended 43, but we've received revenues of 65.6. And tourism, we have revenues of 72.7, and we've expended 27.6. So other funds that we want to track are GO bonds. Those are something that we are obligated to pay. We pay those in June and again in October. We make an interest-only payment in June and then pay the rest. So that number is what I expected it to be. CDBG, we have 91.4 in revenues, and we have nothing planned for expenditures for 2020. REIT 1, we have revenues of 108.9, and we have expended 100%. So any capital projects we have, we've already accounted for those and spent what we planned on spending. REIT 2, we have revenues of 102.3. We've expended nothing, and we actually have nothing planned. So that money is still there and will be there until some plan is formulated. Water fund, we have water reserve and revenue bond, and you can see revenues are tracking at 68.1. We've expended 42.3. The reserve fund, we have to reserve money for our bond debt, and that is just going to stay in there until the final payment. Revenues for the bond revenue is at 14.6, and we've expended 7.6, which is our interest-only payment in June. Sewer fund, revenues at 79%. We've expended 44.9. Same with the reserve fund for the sewer. It is something that sits there until our last payment on the bonds. And then revenue bonds, the revenues are at 99.9. We've expended 7.6. Okay, other funds, our garbage fund revenues are at 74.7, and we've expended 71.5. Ambulance EMS, our revenues are at 68.2. We've expended 49.8. Stormwater revenues are at 65.8 and expended 55.9. And I would like to point out that the utility clerks have been doing an expansive audit on the garbage fund and the stormwater fund, and then started one on the ambulance fund to verify that each parcel or each individual business and household is being properly billed and charged for all three of these services. They are really working towards making sure that our records are very much up to date. So overall, our revenues for everywhere is 63.3, and our expenditures are 45.5. And I would attribute this really to the fact that our staff has done a really good job of watching the bottom line and making sure that we're making purchases that we have to make, and we aren't making purchases that is unnecessary at the moment. Now, that doesn't mean that there are things that we need to do and things that we should be doing at some other time. But right now we know that we're in a holding pattern, and we are just making sure that we get our day-to-day activities and serve our citizens the best we can in these circumstances. So you'll see we've all masked up to open up, and I'd like to open it up for any questions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Elizabeth. And we'll start with Councilor Farmer. Questions or comments on this item?
I'm sorry. I looked at a lot of this stuff today online, and I'm not at a monitor now. The legislative fund, that's council funds. Am I not correct there?
Yes, you are correct.
How come we are so far over the budgeted amount?
So there was a decision to send members to, I want to say it was AWC conference. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to look at it, but I know that you're over in your travel budget and your miscellaneous budget, but that was a choice made by council as a whole. And I'll be bringing forward a budget amendment for that budget in the second quarter.
Okay, and then the REIT 1 fund, that's a real estate tax, am I not correct there?
Yes, you are correct.
And what did we spend that money for? The project?
I'd have to look that one up. Let me minimize and I can look it up.
Because the scope of what you can spend that money for is very limited, I know.
So we spent that on the East Edison Half Street improvements. It was our city match for $50,290.
Okay.
And that was budgeted.
All right. Okay. Going back, and this is just maybe we need to look at our legislative budget a little differently next year to plan for the travel for the AWC and the others. So just a comment, and that's it.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Restucci.
No comments at this time. I appreciate the finance department's work on this report. I may have some follow-up questions in which I'll reach out to them directly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Henry.
No questions, sir.
Deputy Mayor Strimler.
No questions.
Councilor Hicks.
No questions.
Councilor Broersma.
Just one question. First of all, it was a great job. It was a good report. I'm happy to see all of this, but I noticed that on the expense side of the sheet, we've got a couple of funds in the general fund that are running a bit over where we would expect them to be this time of year. Are these funds something that we can reasonably expect to be by the end of the year brought back within the constraints of their budget?
So let me give you an example of one that kind of spoke out to me when I looked at this. And that would be dispatch services. And we know that the police department had a COVID outbreak. And so there were additional cleaning, sanitation, and also some overtime hours that were attributed to people being out of the office. So I feel like by the end of the year, we may be able to make up that ground, or we may have to figure out a way for that to come back to us through reimbursement through the CARES Act or even FEMA. So there will be an opportunity for us to get that back, but if we do that, it will come in as a revenue, so it won't offset that budget. So I may have to come back for a budget amendment, but I am seeking as many grants and reimbursements as I can for the COVID-related expenses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yes, so I'll be next. I had a couple questions on the revenue piece of it, Elizabeth. There's on the pie chart on the city utility taxes, a 6% on the far left of that chart and a 29% private utility tax.
I think those are reversed, and honestly.
It'll be in the next chart, the one that says the retail sales and use tax, and the far left is a 6% and 29%.
It should be the private utility tax is 6% and the city utility tax is 29%.
So just backwards, basically. Okay.
Yes.
So they noticed it was a little bit off from what I remember anyways, but okay, that makes sense. And lastly, I'm just glad that we are trending on the conservative side because we don't know what the rest of the year is going to hold for us. And obviously right now, people are still getting some of that additional unemployment benefits that are going to be expiring here pretty soon. And who knows the next 6 months what's going to bring for us. So I really appreciate the city manager and the finance department and all the department heads using some level of constraint and like you mentioned, buying the necessary items, not necessarily the want items. So thank you for doing that.
Okay, with that, I'm going to mute myself and let you go from there.
All right, Councilman. So those were all the questions, and thank you for the presentation on from the finance department. So up next we have items from council members. Mr. City Manager.
Sorry, excuse me, looking at the council request.
Or Mr. City Manager, did you want to go over the Washington State Economic Outlook presentation that you attached to the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had actually primarily meant that as background information for council to have a sense of some of the broader trends and effects that the state's Revenue Forecast Council is seeing. Some of those are hitting state government very hard right now, and I just felt it was important for you to have access to that information as a resource because we are, while our local situation is, as Elizabeth pointed out, what we're seeing are some reassuring signs in several of our revenue streams here. We're not in isolation, and what happens with the state budget or with county budgets can have ripple effects down to municipalities. So I didn't intend to go through it in any detail, but just wanted to make sure council had access to it.
Thank you very much for that. And it was informative as far as predictions for unemployment and different things of the state. So thank you for that information.
Welcome. Thank you. On the council request status report, the first couple of items are in Public Works. Director Fisher, can you provide us if there's, I don't believe there's been any action on the parking proposal with HLA, but if you can confirm that. And then you did share with me that on tree replacements that some of the nurseries with which we have traditionally worked have recently reopened in late June and early July, and they're starting to respond. So if you can provide updates on those and on the guardrails.
Yeah, you bet. So on the disabled parking area and the AARP grant, they did not have an open call for grants this year, obviously with COVID going on. So we'll have to wait till next year and apply for that grant. As far as the tree replacement plan goes, I sat down last week, looked back through the trees that the city manager and myself had took a look at before COVID happened, just to make sure I was clear on what this is the trees for the pathway. Those are all the trees that we removed between Lincoln and Edison. So I revisited that. I'll be reaching out. I'm currently on leave this week. We'll be back next week and plan to sit down with Mr. Casey to finalize those trees and placements and start calling nurseries to get those ordered. And I can answer any questions with that.
So, Director Fisher, is there anything on either the guardrails or the planters?
Nothing on the guardrails. Probably won't revisit that. Me and Stephanie with HLA had a conversation a couple weeks ago about it. She'd actually brought it up where we were on that. I know I still want to reach out to SVIT to take a look at the potential guardrail that's needed on Sunnyside Ave that comes around the east end of the hill with the irrigation canal. So that's another one I want to take a look at. So no update on that just as of yet.
Okay.
And as far as the planters go, the guys are going down. They're cleaning the planters up every week. So hopefully they're keeping up with the weeds and whatnot. Have not heard anything from Van Wingerden or anybody as part of that downtown group. I know they wanted some specific plantings, and they were going to kind of get together and kind of discuss that. Have not heard back from that group. So that's all I know on that item.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Council received an update from Chief Anderson on the residency program in your monthly department report. If council has any questions on that, I'm sure Chief would be happy to answer. And then the only other item I was going to mention on the small cell 5G, I'm not aware of any new developments since the last update on this. I know Councilor Restucci's probably been the most attuned into that discussion, and I don't know if he has any new information.
The only information I can offer is that millimeter wave, or what is the latest version of 5G or flavor, has hit the market. And right now we've got all of the different providers providing what they're calling 5G, but it's not the same across the board. And so the FCC is now trying to say, you know, you're going to have to come up with a standard that's going to be across the board for everybody. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. There's still multiple legal battles going on. If I get any more information, I will definitely bring a report to council. But right now, I see this stuck in the mud, at least until the new year.
And that would be all I have. Thank you.
All right, councilors, if you have any additional items, please let us know. We'll get them on the request status, and we'll move on to our next item for now. Item B, which could be other reports, announcements, under questions by council. We'll start with Councilor Restucci. Any reports, announcements, or under questions?
No, nothing to report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Hicks.
Just a quick question. Now that restaurants are allowed to have outdoor seatings and things like that, are yard sales going to be allowed again?
Thank you, Councilor. The governor's office has deemed that yard sales constitute a gathering, and even under phase 1.5, gatherings of folks outside the households are not allowed. In phase 2, gatherings of fewer than 5 people will be allowed. So it would be incumbent on, if we're able to do yard sales in phase 2, they'd have to manage it so that no more than 5 people show up. So we're not authorizing or not issuing any permits, and that's we're pretty. We've talked with some other cities. The city clerk, Jacqueline Andrea, reached out to some other cities to double check what their practices are, and that's pretty universal in the Lower Valley right now.
Okay, we'll move on to Councilor Henry. Okay, we might have lost him. He was driving, I know that much. So, Deputy Mayor Stremler. Oh, Henry, okay, go right ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. I was saying I do have something from last week. It's actually kind of an apology because I went down to those vehicles on Edison and 7th. And the whole reason I went down there and was so concerned about it is because I thought Councilor Farmer said it was a mini chop. But what he said was, it looks like crap. So I misinterpreted those words, and I did look at it. It's nothing like chop. So I apologize for that. I misheard, and it completely changed the whole direction of the meaning of the thing.
Right.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Stremler.
I have one thing for the city manager. Do we have any update on that outside dining for that restaurant on South 5th Street? I believe it's 502. I believe the address was that one we talked to you about the other day.
I believe Mike Shuttleworth has already met with the owner. This is a commercial proposal. And what he learned from the owner is, or not from the owner, from the restaurant owner, not the building owner, is that these plans were actually being reviewed by the city's contracted commercial plan reviewer. And so we are trying to gather some more information to understand what the questions or issues that arose. There are three parties involved. There's the building owner, there's the building owner's contractor, and then there's the restaurant owner who are all trying to navigate this. And so Mike Shuttleworth has begun following up on that and has already met with the restaurant owner to begin that process.
Okay, the reason I ask is I just talked to the restaurant owner just before the meeting, and I asked him if he had any update, and he said no. He has talked to Mike, but it was not concerning the outside dining as I understood it. But then I asked him if there was any update, and he said no.
Yeah, Mike hasn't completed that process yet. I talked with Mike on Thursday of last week. I think he had a chance to connect with the owner on Thursday afternoon or Friday, and had started following up on that. But no, he hasn't been able to resolve or complete his look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Boersma.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it was mentioned that LTAC met recently to specifically discuss the Jerry Taylor Memorial Plaza proposal, but other things did come up through the discussion, and we are having a meeting in the near future too. LTAC is very aware of the circumstances as a result of this year and the constraints that we might have on the revenues. And so we are taking a long look at what we have available and what we may have available in the next year and how that's going to impact events. We're working very diligently to try to make sure that we have the revenues to cover the events that we're able to do next year. We haven't officially called off any of our fall or winter events at this point, and kind of waiting to see what we are directed to do by other authorities at this point. But at our next meeting, that is definitely going to be one of the things that is brought up and discussed. And we're trying to work with all the interested parties in coming up with the best possible plan. So look forward to a report from me on that in a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Farmer.
Just a quick question to the city manager. Have we been able to move forward at all on the camping ground and the parking lot at all on 7th Street?
Yes, I do have an update on that. I actually had prepared that for part of the city manager's report, but happy to respond to that here. At the workshop last week, of course, council had a broad discussion on our parking codes and recent case law governing how cities may regulate homelessness. And there were some specific concerns raised about several vehicles parked at the free city-owned parking lot on 7th. Since then, Police Chief Escalera has met with all of the neighboring businesses and residents, and we have increased overnight patrols of activities in the parking lot. We did have one call this past weekend regarding a suspicious person nearby, but police were able to apprehend the suspect and confirm that he was not associated with the homeless individuals. Public Works has confirmed that Pacific Power just replaced the parking lot's lighting with new, brighter LED fixtures earlier this spring, but they are researching other lighting options. Code enforcement has continued its efforts to ensure that litter is being cleaned up as best we can, but it has also started the process to tag and remove a couple of the vehicles that are not inhabited. We have conferred further with the city attorney. As the attorneys discussed with council last week, there are elements of our current codes that really are not any longer applicable to the tools that just don't fit with current case law in this circumstance. So they are beginning work on potential code amendments that would comply with current case law for briefing to council. Probably you'll see on the upcoming planning agenda, we're looking at that for August 3rd. And frankly, one model that we're currently reviewing just came from Union Gap, which just adopted an ordinance regulating public camping in February of this year. And so it, we believe, already takes into consideration some of the legal matters that that were identified for council last week. So those are some of the steps we've already initiated.
Appreciate that.
Okay, and I don't have any questions. So up next we have our upcoming council meetings, Mr. City Manager.
Sorry about the delay. So looking ahead to July 27th, given that the governor's orders, statewide orders have all been extended through August, or through the beginning of August, excuse me, and we're anticipating that the Safe Start order is likely to be extended because much of the state is still on pause, either in phase 1 or, well, we're in 1.5 now, or phase 2 or phase 3. We're fully expecting that by month's end we'll be seeing extension of those. So starting to work with the city attorney on emergency proclamation extension just to extend some of the administrative changes that we've put in place earlier this year. Most of those are working without incident, and in fact, Finance Director Alba kind of mentioned this earlier. One thing that we've been pleasantly reassured by is that despite the fact that there's been so much disruption in the local economy and for many workers, we have not seen a very high level of residents needing to access the programs and the deferrals that were put in place for their city utility bills. A remarkably high rate of residents are continuing to be able to meet their bill paying, utility bill payments. And so that's reassuring, but we do, obviously have that program in place as directed under the governor's orders to allow folks to request hardship deferral on those. And we have we've halted all shutoffs per the governor's orders. We do anticipate bringing forward to you a second quarter budget amendment. As again, Finance Director mentioned, there are some adjustments that we're looking within certain funds just to kind of keep things on track and stay in compliance with state audit requirements that we continually review the budgets and the fund expenditure approvals so that we're adjusting for things as they come up, but most of those are going to be fairly modest. In planning, new planning supervisor Mike Shuttleworth is kind of bringing home the final step on an annexation that was begun a number of years ago. We recently got back approval from the Boundary Review Board for it. All the previous steps have been initiated and completed by council, but once the Boundary Review Board makes their determination, then it comes back one final time for final council approval and action. So we'll be bringing that forward at the end of July. We are looking into whether, trying to find an example, we're aware that councils may take policy positions on and looking at potentially bringing to council an endorsement resolution related to the ballot initiative on the Transportation Benefit District, but we want to make sure we set that up correctly and can do that correctly. So that's still under review. Public Works Director Fisher has a project. This is to repipe or reline some piping, and so it's a nice way to renew our underground infrastructure without having to do a whole lot of extra construction. And then he also has a Department of Ecology grant that we'll be bringing forward. And then August 3rd, we anticipate the attorneys being ready to follow up on the parking vehicle ordinance and discussion. At this time, we don't have a lot currently slotted in for the August meetings, in part because we're also wanting to have a conversation with you later this evening about budget workshop and timing. And then just a heads up, it's already starting to creep into September, but your first September meeting, the workshop there will be delayed a day to September 8th because of the Labor Day holiday. And those are the main items we have coming up soon.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager. And if council members need to see an item on the agenda, please let Jackie, myself, or the City Manager know. We'll get that on there for you guys. Up next, we have items from City Manager and Department Heads. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. I have about 4 topics I wanted to bring to council and the public's attention tonight. First, I have an update on the COVID-19 pandemic here in Yakima County. As of this evening, the county has reported 8,676 cases and 174 deaths from COVID-19. Currently, 38 residents are in the hospital, which is an improvement, and about 63% of our cases are considered recovered, which means that it's been at least 28 days since the individual received their positive test result, and they are not currently in the hospital or deceased. Across the state, however, increasing business and social activities have contributed to a rise in new cases in many of the counties that had already advanced to phase 2 or phase 3. And so in recent weeks, the state has paused further reopening at this time. The governor and legislature extended several state orders related to COVID-19 to the beginning of August. And I just saw in the news a little bit ago, today, California closed back down all indoor operations of bars, restaurants, theaters, museums, salons, gyms, churches, and many other activities that they had allowed to reopen in May because the pandemic there is getting out of control again. Even so, Washington, most folks I think are aware in the community, Yakima County was approved to move forward to a modified phase 1.5 opening. And this was really driven by signs that our health education efforts have begun to help reduce the number of new cases, which in late June had actually dropped back below 100 new cases per day. And another factor in their decision was that Yakima residents were traveling to other parts of the state for services that weren't yet open here. And so by reopening in a limited way, the hope is to reduce infection risks to other parts of the state and help our local small businesses begin to recover. A key test of that progress is coming now because we're starting to see the impacts from social gatherings held to celebrate the 4th of July. As it snowed, symptoms generally appear about 7 to 10 days after exposure, and in the last few days, new confirmed cases have edged back up over 100 per day. Health officials continue to urge residents keep wearing a mask while at work or in public when they can't keep 6 feet apart, wash your hands frequently. Please don't have social gatherings with folks outside your household who do not live with you, and please stay home except for essential travel. Next, I want to let residents know about an activity they'll see getting underway near Central Park on 5th Street. Just some quick background. Pacific Power has a grant program to fund electric vehicle charging stations. And at this time, the nearest public EV stations are in Yakima and Benton City, which leaves about a 60-mile gap on the I-82 corridor. The Port of Sunnyside and the city together saw this as an opportunity to bring visitors off the freeways and get them to try to spend time downtown while improving our transportation infrastructure. We applied for a grant to fund an EV project on 5th between Varietal and Codin, both of whom provided letters of support. And in February, Pacific Power gave us that grant. But then COVID happened, so there was a bit of a delay, but I'm pleased to say that that project is now getting underway. What the public will see is next steps include trenching for electrical conduit across the Franklin Avenue Park entrance to the parking stalls there on 5th. I want to reassure folks this work will not disturb the Bonnie Dunbar statue. Electricians will then pull wire to the new charging station pedestal. Pacific Power will come in, connect the charging stations, energize the circuit, and then the charging station vendor will train staff on how to operate and maintain the units. We expect the charging station to be ready for public use by the end of August. My next item is new information that has come to us that may be a significant financial benefit to the city, but we're trying to learn more about it. As you know, many state and local governments have sued several pharmaceutical companies over their roles in the opioid crisis that swept the nation during the past 20 years. One of the largest of those companies, Purdue Pharma, has entered bankruptcy. The bankruptcy court is now in the midst of resolving claims from state and local governments in excess of $10 to $15 billion. And city staff just learned that the court has prepared a claim estimate for each city and county. We got some legal documents recently. And the court prepared a claim estimate for each city and county, and we have to decide by July 30th whether to file a claim. And the court's claim estimate for Sunnyside was for nearly $6,670,000 in past damages, with another potential $5,980,000 in future damages and abatement costs. So Finance Director Alba and the City Attorney are now researching the details of the legal documents and the claims process, and we are going to be bringing back a report and a recommended action to you and adding that to your July 27th meeting agenda. A lot to digest there, but if it works out, then it could be a significant financial support for the city's impacts, and it could go to future damages and costs related to things like emergency medical services and law enforcement activity arising, from the opioid crisis. But we've got to learn a little more about this. Lastly, I wanted to ask Council about how we hold our 2021 budget kickoff workshop, which we normally do in early August. For the past few years, the Council has chosen to spend about 5 to 6 hours on a Saturday off-site meeting. It's been held at Snipes or in Zilla or in Prosser. Frankly, it's not yet clear if we'll be able to have any public present given COVID-19. We may be able to hold a limited in-person meeting and stream the proceedings. Current public health guidelines strongly favor an outdoor setting over indoors, especially for extended discussions. There's increasing evidence that indoor air circulation issues are very problematic for mass or what they call these super spreader events, and it would require strict physical distancing and masks. So we're trying to figure out logistics for how we do this, but wanted to see if council members have a preference for the timing or for a location, and kind of put that question out there and invite council members to either, if you have thoughts tonight, happy to take those ideas down, or if you want to reflect on it and have some suggestions, please feel free to call or email Jackie or myself, and we'll try to kind of synthesize something together that we can bring back to council for further discussion on July 27th. And that would be my report.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go on to your department heads then.
Okay. Let's see. I think we've already heard from Shane and from Elizabeth. How about we'll invite Fire Chief Anderson first. We'll go alphabetically. Well, actually, that's Alba, isn't it?
Is it me?
Yes, Ken. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and Mr. Casey addressed everything that I was going to say. So we're still tracking the numbers with the COVID. We're seeing the same trends, positive, optimistic trends in our service level and our encounters. So we're still going to promote that people wear their mask and do their social distancing so that hopefully we can get this all under control. Thank you.
Chief Escalera? He may have had to step off. We'll come back. Director Alba?
The only thing that I have, I just wanted to let council know that our 2019 audit will be starting soon. and it will be an all electronic, no on-site auditors. So this will kind of be a first for us in the finance world. Usually you have auditors on site for 2 or 3 weeks. So we will have our first preliminary planning meeting this week, and then they will be reaching out via email to council members for our entrance and exit conference.
Thank you. Director Fisher, anything?
Yeah, just got one item to update. The East Edison project contractor will be mobbing in on the 20th, which is next Monday, to start work in that area. That's all I have.
And Chief Escalera, are you still on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
Just had a little problem there. I ended up getting disconnected, so I had to call back in. As far as the police department goes, we had another series of protests over the weekend that incorporated Grandview, Prosser, and City of Sunnyside. Ours was uneventful. We had no issues there. It was pretty upbeat, but they only had about 8 protesters tops, so all went well there. COVID related, everybody's doing fine. We had a couple of exposures here over the weekend, monitoring them on a regular basis, but no problem so far. That's all I have.
And Mr. Mayor, just a quick update. While council was deliberating, I did go ahead and send an email contact to Mr. Hodkinson, our representative from Allman Real Estate, to communicate the counter proposal. He has confirmed receipt of that and will discuss it with the buyer, and so hopefully we'll have a report back soon.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Any additional department heads? So I think we covered them all. Is that correct?
Clerk Renteria, do you have anything?
No, I don't. I'm going to reach out to PrimeGov and ask them what was going on with people not being able to connect correctly. I'll ask them what's going on. And tomorrow we have 2 meetings that will be kind of going at the same time, depending on how long each one of them runs. So I'm kind of hoping we don't have problems there either. But so I'll talk to PrimeGov about it.
Thank you.
Okay,
that's all we have.
Thank you, everyone. So there being no further business to come before council, and without objection, I adjourn this meeting at 8:02 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you, sir. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Good night.
All right.